Okay, welcome everyone. Um, Today is probably what 12th lecture. Yeah. So today we shall begin with one question which one of you would asked is that during the transitions, the charging and discharging currents can never be equal. Okay. So let us understand this statement which I made previously. So you are essentially having any circuit, but let us say for simplicity's sake just an inverter. So basically you are going to have one pull down network and the other one is the pull up network. Okay. So this is VI here. Okay. So during the charging phase. So first of all, let us understand that in the VTC, okay, when we are considering the VTC, we will have, remember I told that there will be multiple regions, right? So in the VTC, this is VTN. When it is completely flat between 0 to VTN, this is VI, of course. So this is your VDD. Roughly the same distance on both sides. So this is VDD minus VTP. Okay. So this is your VI. And this happens to be your VO. This is VDD. Okay. Now, there is a line that goes through the inverter threshold here. That is, of course, VO equal to VI line. You all know all this. Okay. But what I shall do is I shall simply translate this above. So what are the regions we got? This is region 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So in region 1 and 5, these are the static conditions. That means there is no switching between 0 and VTN and VDD minus VTP and VDD. Okay. So this charging and discharging phase. So during this charging, static phase 1 and 5, okay, the only currents. So in this case, when during phase 1, okay, the VO is always VDD. Okay. Now, as I have shown over here. However, you have to always keep in mind that this, technically or theoretically, ideally, okay, this NMOS, okay, this is VI, right? So VI should be less than VTN, as you can see over here in region 1. So that means this NMOS is technically switched off. So if it is technically switched off, then you will assume that whatever current during the first, this PMOS, okay, this VI is less than VTN, all right? So the PMOS is essentially going to charge up the CO. CO charge up to how much? VDD only, correct? But the thing is, in reality, there is always some amount of current which will be flowing because of the leakages. Okay, we will see leakages after some few classes. So if there is a leakage current, then you might expect that the VO will slowly reduce because this is a current which essentially flows from this node, right, the output node. So that means the VO should be decreasing from VDD. The answer is no. Why? Because this leakage current is definitely in much lower than the charging current. Okay, so let me draw the charging current like this. This is your ICH and this is your I discharge. hide this. Okay, since I charge is much larger than I discharge in phase 1, I charging is much larger than I discharge. Why? Because I discharge is only because of leakages, right? Only like probably in the order of nano amperes or so, whereas charging current will be in the order of microamperes. So if there is even the slightest decrease in the value of VO from VDD, slightly lesser than VDD, okay, the I charging will immediately pull the output voltage to VDD. And this will go on in such a manner that you will hardly ever see any decrease of VDD in region 1. Okay, the VO will be stuck at VDD itself. So what I was trying to tell you in the last lecture is that even though, I mean, it will appear as if VO is constant at VDD during 0 to VTN input, appearing as if there is no charge leakage, but actually there will be a charge leakage, but the leakage will be immediately replenished by the charging current on this side. Got it? Huh? So VO will be stuck at VDD. So there is no confusion with that. Now comes number 2. In region number 2, remember what is happening is that the NFET starts to switch on. If NFET starts to switch on, automatically what will happen is that it will be going into the saturation region. So obviously we know that the saturation region will have higher currents than the linear region, correct? So in region 2, okay, we know that your MP, the P MOSFET, is in linear region of operation, whereas we now know in region 2, okay, your N MOSFET happens to be in saturation now. So it is going to draw more current than the I charging. Okay, so in region 2, suddenly we will notice that the I discharge is going to exceed the I charge current. Okay, that is the reason why the voltage at the output node starts falling, because more amount of current is flowing. So basically, how much of current is flowing out? Basically, I discharge minus the I charge. Or in other words, we can write I discharge is the current through the N MOSFET and I charge is the current through the P MOSFET. This will be the effective current which is reducing the voltage at the output node. Okay. Now, what I made a statement that during the transitions, if IN equal to IP, if this I charge and I discharge are the same, then as you can see from the equation IN minus IP, they will be equal to 0, right? So there will be no change in DVO dt. So that means there is no change in the output voltage with respect to the time. Okay. So here, of course, this is a VTC. So that means during the discharging phase, okay, that is high to low transition, that is possible if and only if the discharge current is higher than the charging current. Okay, and this will continue, okay, until the transition is over. Similarly, during the charging phase, discharging phase, what is the situation? And even though in our calculations we kind of ignored the other aspects, so charging phase we ignored the discharging, and okay, so this is actually not the charging phase. In the charging phase, it will be just the reverse. Okay, I have actually showed here discharging itself, right? So I'll just put here discharging phase. Okay, I discharge. Okay, so I discharge minus I charge. Now, during the charging phase here, what is the situation? How will your VTC look like? This is the case where VO is going from VDD to 0. Okay, चार्जिंग फेज के लिए हम लोग क्या कैसे ड्रॉ करेंगे? इट्स जस्ट द रिवर्स बेसिकली. सो just copy this. Okay, and then will be somewhat like that. Okay, so now what is the scenario? Now what is the scenario here? This is the charging phase now. In the charging phase, this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. Now the VI direction will be opposite. VI is going from, actually, I should not mention it like VI over here, otherwise it will violate the inverter law. Okay, so here I shall put it say simple time t. Now in the charging phase, what is happening is your I charge should increase over the I discharge, and the difference between the two will be given by IP minus IN. That will be equal to the charging current. Okay, so the whole point of this discussion is that even though we have ignored the other part, so charging phase ke liye we thought that IP is equal to CO dVO dt, and we tried to figure out whether IP will be in the saturation region or linear region. Okay, that's how we have done all the switching analysis. Similarly, in case of discharging phase, we were always considering only the IN, and we ignored the IP. But please remember, during the transition between the regions 2, 3, and 4, okay, both the transistors are switched on. So that means there will always be a charging current and a discharging current, even though we are doing an approximation and neglecting one over the other. Okay, so as I'm telling that I charge is greater than I discharge, the approximation that we have taken for all this analysis is that it is much larger. It is so much larger that we can ignore this. Similarly, over here, we can ignore this. Now it becomes a matter whether IP will be the saturation current or the linear current. That's why we calculated the instance of the linear saturation boundary and all those things. You know the story. But please keep in mind that during the transitions, both the transistors are switched on. I know. That is the reason why you are having that transition. If during charging and discharging, during the transition, suppose I charge and I discharge are the same, then basically there is no question of any change in the output voltage. So the transition happens just because either one of the two is exceeding the other. Got it, everyone?
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, during transition, one point will come na when I discharge is equal to I charge, because after the region 1, I discharge will increasing and...
Exactly. That is the reason why the rate is decreasing, as you can see. Okay. For example, the slope of this line will be maximum at this point when both the transistors are in saturation. So both of them are pulling current as the maximum.
Okay.
And after that, what will happen is this is slowly the slope is again flattening out. So finally, when it is becoming flattened out in region 1 and region 5, what does it mean? That basically the output capacitance has become completely charged or completely discharged.
So I discharge will be much larger than I charge
Yes, yes, yes. I mean, at this point, yes.
at this point. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Clear,
Very
sir.
nice. Okay, so today we are going to begin with the analysis of the power. Okay. Let's first work out with the switching power consumption. So just a recap of what we have already done yesterday. So uh, power in a VLSI circuit. One is called the static power. This is the standard way static power, and the other one is the dynamic power. Okay, please understand this important thing, because this is the portion where you can expect questions in your interviews very often. Okay, so static and dynamic. Under static and dynamic, we are having two each. Yesterday we had seen that the static usually refers to as the leakages. Okay, dynamic is usually dynamic means essentially because of the transition. Okay, static means, as I showed over here, region 1 and region, in fact, static will dominate in region 1 and region 5. Okay, of course, there are static dissipations in 2, 3, 4 also, but nobody cares in 2, 3, 4 because the power over here will be dominated by the dynamic itself. The dynamic power consumption will be way much larger compared to the leakages in 1 and 5. Okay, so we will see all those things later. So static leakages के अंतर्गत आपका आता है junction leakages. The other one is a subthreshold. So both of them are leakages. Okay. Dynamic के अंतर्गत क्या आता है? Number one, the switching, but I will mention it as a consumption. Okay. This is the power which is needed to switch the capacitor. Okay. Dynamic and under there is another one which is a short circuit. This is again a dissipation, power wasted. Okay. So the switching power consumption or switching power dissipation भी लोग कहते हैं, but anyway it is always remember that even though it is power dissipation, but it is something which you actually require. Okay, this is the necessary for the for the switching of the output node, obviously. Okay? So this is the basic breakup. Okay, so now we will look into the switching power consumption first. So during the switching power consumption, we are essentially going to have two different scenarios. Number one, okay. Number two, okay. Remember, this VO is a function of time t. All right. Okay. So this is a function of time t. All right. So now what we will observe is that there is a current which is flowing here, and a current which is flowing here. Obviously, based on the previous analysis, discussion, we know that this is basically the I discharge and this is the I charge. Discharging current and the charging current. Okay. Here I have assumed the simple industrial standard. Simply I have chosen RP. Remember RP and RN. Which region of operation they are? The linear region, because the transistors will operate in the linear region for most of the duration of the transition, number one. Second thing is that if when we are trying to look into the scenario, as I said, the charging current will be there and also the discharging current will also be there. The same discussion over here. Okay. However, the discharging current will be much less during the charging phase, whereas the charging current will be much less in the discharging phase. Okay. So we are making that assumption that there is no power which is lost. Okay. Then what is our charging current? Will be equal to plus CO dVO dt. What is the discharging current? Clearly, similarly, it will be minus CO dVO dt. Okay. Now, the switching power, usually we will call it as the PSW, and this one I will call it as the PSC. Okay, the switching power will be given by, there is one very important assumption which I will look into it after I finish the derivation. Notice that whenever we are speaking about a power, okay, so power will essentially be the total energy spent per unit time, right? So we will essentially do the average over 1 upon T 0 to capital T, that is the whole period, time period, IO into VO dt. Makes sense? Now, if we look at the characteristics, then how does it appear? From here, okay, and from here it will, okay, so this is your time T. All right, now this is your VDD. The same diagram which we kind of coded in Python last time. Okay, so now notice that I am essentially trying to find out we are trying to calculate the switching power for the entire duration of 0 to capital T, that is one time period. Okay, now notice that the transitions will happen, okay, between 0 to capital T by 2. That means it is essentially rise time analysis. Okay, so it is essentially going from low to high logic, and from T by 2, that is half of the time period, for the remaining half of the time period, second half of the time period, it is essentially falling down. So we can write 1 upon capital T. So when it is first half time period, it is basically the charging current. For the second half, it is the discharge. As you can see, the output is going going down from VDD to 0. So that means it is a discharging current. Okay, VOD is equal to 1 upon capital T. What is the expression for I charge? We have already seen this here, so I'll put CO directly. dVO dt. minus CO by capital T. Remember, discharge current is minus over here. We can cancel them. And what do you get? Notice that when we are now we are essentially trying to do the integral with respect to dVO rather than dt, right? So if it is dVO, initially what we see during the first half cycle, what we see is that the output VO is going from 0 to VDD. Okay, so we shall write here 0 to VDD. From T by 2 to capital T. So that means essentially for the second half cycle, it is going from VDD to 0. Okay, यहाँ पर VDD to 0. Perfect. Now, what is the case here? VO square by 2, right? So CO VDD square. And here, since it is VDD and 0, so if we interchange the limits, so that becomes plus, again CO by 2T, again VDD square. So you are left with CO VDD square into the frequency F. Remember, F is equal to 1 upon capital T. So what is the assumption we are essentially considering over here? So is this the correct expression always?
No, sir.
Why?
Sir, this equation we are considering alpha is equal to 1, static
Exactly.
CMOS.
Exactly. So it's not static CMOS, it's static CMOS inverter. Okay. So in the static CMOS also, you can essentially have multiple circuits where alpha is different. Okay. So what we are assuming over here is that this variation occurs for every variation of the VI, which is definitely not the case. So this expression is valid only for the switching activity of 1. So this is nothing other than the switching activity. We have to do a lot of problems on switching activity later on. Okay, so this switching activity is very, very important, as we will see later on. And how to deal with the switching activity is something which we will see. So the switching activity is the probability that you are going to have a switching. Okay, so whenever there is a switching, so this is a switching, as you can see. Okay? That means the switching activity is 1. That means there is definitely a switching. Okay, so you are essentially going to have this relation. So the actual value of the P switching power consumption will be alpha CO VDD square into F. Okay, so now what we can do to reduce the switching power?
Minimizing alpha and VDD.
You can essentially have couple of things to do. Okay, a few things to do. So minimize. Okay, I'll just write here. All right. So the first thing that comes into our mind is that small f. Okay. So unless in it, it is specifically necessary to develop a circuit for high frequencies, you can always reduce a small f. So as you can see, P switching is directly proportional to the frequency and you cannot help it out. Okay. So if you know that your, for example, I'll just give you a typical example. What is the frequency of your monitor? Okay. Remember that the visual card which is there for your motherboard, okay, visual display card, that is essentially going to work at 600 megahertz. Okay. Now, if you are making the monitor, computer screen and LCD panel, you can of course design it for 1200 megahertz also. You can. But the problem is, even if you are designing it for 1200 megahertz, you're not essentially gaining anything at all, because what is essentially happening is that every 2 cycles your computer is going to measure, let me see, no, 1 2, every 2 cycles here. This is your graphics card. Graphics card will be reading like this, and this is your supposedly 1200 megahertz design, screen design. Okay, so graphics card on motherboard. I'm showing you one very kind of, let us rather say it's a lame example, but still this is what you can always think of. Suppose you are an IC designer and you are thinking that I will have a much faster refresh rate, so to speak, of my screen design. But there is no point, because your graphics card on the motherboard, on Intel motherboard, okay, they are going to poll only at 600 megahertz. So your 1200 megahertz screen will still work. There is no problem with that. The only thing is that you are unnecessarily wasting. So here is also high, here is also high. So your motherboard will only see whatever is the data at this instant, and let us say this instant. Okay, na? So there is absolutely no point in making these transitions. Therefore, unless it is specifically necessary to go for high frequencies, do not go for high frequency designs at all. You are simply increasing the switching power. In fact, later on we will see that this even the short circuit power also is directly proportional to the frequency. So your dynamic power in general will increase with the frequencies. Okay, so the first thing is that unless mandatory, do not go for high frequencies, for higher frequency designs. It sounds very nice that okay, I designed a much higher refresh rate, but uska koi फायदा ही नहीं है, because the end result, your finally the user who is going to use the laptop or the computer monitor screen, okay, the screen, LCD screen, they are simply going to find out the data over here and data over here. बीच में क्या transitions हो रहा है उससे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. In fact, later on we will see, when we will be doing the real circuit designs, we will notice that the outputs at these points only will be latched for the graphics card. Anything that is happening inside doesn't matter. It's total waste of your power. All right, very good. That's number one. Number two, what is that? VDD can be reduced, and that is clearly a big advantage, because we know that it is proportional to VDD square. Okay, but what is the problem of reducing the VDD? In the same technology node, let us say 180 nanometer technology node, where VDD is equal to 1.8 volts, at 180 nanometer, take note. Then, if can we design the circuit with lesser VDD? You can argue that okay, it is a 180 nanometer technology node, but I am going to put, let us say, 0.9 volts. That is half of the maximum VDD. Will that work or will it not work?
Sir, threshold voltage will be high for the higher technologies.
Threshold voltage is around 0.6. मैंने बताया VDD
There should
0.9.
be, sir, margin for the noise also.
So the currents decrease and the driving capability of the device will decrease.
No, the
The
previous,
possibility
this is also correct. The previous answer is also correct. The noise margin will suffer. Yes, that is actually correct. In analog circuit designs, in analog IC designs you are learning, there is a very interesting topic called headroom. Have you heard this term? This headroom will suffer in analog IC design. In case of digital IC designs, we will speak in terms of noise margin. Of course, you are right, noise margin is one. And what I think Ashok said, that is also correct. That means your current driving capacity will decrease. So what is the meaning of what is the net effect of current driving capacity? What is the influence of, I mean, we will always try to have a higher current driving capacity. So what does it mean essentially?
for higher gains.
No.
So fan out.
Fan out, excellent.
Fan out.
Fan out will suffer. We will learn about fan out later on in this course. Fan out has to do with the performance of the circuits. Right now, we are working on the power. Okay. So the fan out will suffer. Okay. But that will suffer only if we are reducing the VDD in the main part of the circuit. The main part in the sense like the portion of the circuit which is essentially catering to the logic levels. Okay. But is it possible to kind of reduce the VDD without affecting the output? Yes, you can. What you can do is, as I said, you reduce the VT also. VT को भी कम कर देंगे. ठीक है? So how can you do that? Scaling. Okay, that is where scaling comes into the picture. So if you are doing the scaling of the technology, in PMMD we discussed about scaling with probably several weeks, I guess. So the scaling of the technology is so important over here. So if we scale the technology from 180 all the way to say 45, this 1.8 volts reduced to 1 volt. Okay, so with scaling, VDD decreases. So what we understand that our switching power should decrease with the reduction in the VDD. But remember, the problem which I said is that if we are stuck with the same technology node of 180 nanometers, can we design the VDD? Can we design the circuits with lower VDD? The answer is, as far as your actual logic level or signal level is concerned, then we are going to suffer a hit in terms of fan out, in terms of your headroom, in terms of noise margin, as you have rightly said.
Sir, delays even, I think so.
Delays will essentially have to do with the currents. So yeah, delays will also matter.
Sir,
because
swing.
the currents are decreased.
Output swing.
Sorry? Output swing has got to do with the headroom.
Output swing.
Yes, that has got to do with the headroom. Okay, headroom क्या कहते हैं? Like if this is your VDD and 0, the amplification happens like this. Okay, this is called the headroom. So if the output swing, the technical term for it is called the dynamic range. Okay, so if the dynamic range of that AC signal at the output increases, your headroom decreases. Okay, so the red one is called the headroom in analog IC designs, and this is called the dynamic range. I am of course showing it peak to peak value, but you understand this. This is the dynamic range. of the signal. All right. So either you speak in terms of headroom or dynamic range, doesn't matter. In fact, the dynamic range of the signal, that essentially it's kind of a difficult thing to measure, because you know what, the input is not in your control. Whenever, suppose you are making one amplifier or a filter, okay, the input can be this much and input can be this much also. Okay, so the dynamic range will keep on varying. So if you want to have a distortion-free amplification or distortion-free filter, okay, then, or let us say a very good headphone you want to design, all right. So for that, you have to essentially work on the headroom so that this amplification does not go through any of the second order effects, okay. You'll be learning in analog IC design, I'm sure. Okay, so we should, as an analog IC designer, we have to bother about the headroom concept. As a digital IC designer, we have to bother about the noise margin. Okay, so scaling will help us in the VDD, but this scaling has got to do with the technology node itself. So you have to change the technology node. That is part of the project of this course. I mean the course project. Okay, there we will see the influence of scaling technology, the libraries and all that. However, once the technology library is fixed, can you reduce the switching power in the design aspect? Because as a circuit designer, you do not have control over 45 nanometer or 180 nanometer. Okay, so whether it is 45 nanometer or 180 nanometer, 65, 90, 32, 14, 16, 10, 7, that will essentially depend upon the devices or whether you can afford to get a FinFET technology or not. Okay, design to aap kar doge, kya problem hai usme? Okay, you just take the library file and basically you will design it, no problem. But it is more about whether the company where you are working for, let us say Micron Technologies, whether Micron will be interested to use 7 nanometers or not, whether they can afford FinFET technology or not. That is the question. But again, as an IC designer, you don't, I mean, you are a circuit designer, right? I mean, you give any technology library, you will design the circuit accordingly. What is the problem with that? Okay, which technology to use is essentially the responsibility of the PMMD students, let us say. Okay, so the device engineers will be bothered about it. Now, in this course, we are as a circuit designer. So as a circuit designer, you don't have bothered about it. So now my question to you as a circuit designer is that, given a technology node, suppose I have told you 45 nanometers mein hi banana hai, then can you reduce the switching power?
Sir, clock gating.
Yes, clock gating. No. Clock gating kaise banta hai?
So using an AND gate, so whenever we don't require particular block of the circuitry, we just
Correct. Awesome. So that brings us to, let us say, number 3. This clock gating, we will learn those techniques in this course. This clock gating essentially answers to alpha. Okay. Well, it's not appearing properly. This, I think this is alpha. This is proportional. Okay. So what does clock gating do? What clock gating does is it reduces the switching activity. Okay. So clock gating is one of the techniques for reducing the switching activity. Okay. Clock gating is just one of the techniques. Okay. Reduces switching activity. We will do problems on this, then it will become clearer. So VDD को कैसे कम करोगे?
Sir, switch off the power supply when circuit is ideal.
Excellent. कैसे करोगे?
By source gating, sir.
Yes, you can do source gating. We will simply use multi-VDD circuits. And that is very, very standard in today's world. Multi-VDD circuits. कैसे? For example, in modern technology, as I said, nobody uses static. ये जो static CMOS का जितना हम बता रहे हैं ना, this is only for your understanding purposes, but the real circuits are never static. Towards the end of this course, you will use static CMOS only for buffering. Okay? You will never use, in fact, buffering, even inverters, buffers, then we will use it for registers, that is latches basically. Okay? वहीं पर हम CMOS, static CMOS use करेंगे. In actual circuits, that is the evaluate phase of the circuits, we will invariably use dynamics. Okay, so what I'm suggesting here in multi-VDD circuits is that there will, if it is a dynamic circuit, that will always be clocked. And when we are dealing with the clock, we never require to have the clocks to be switching from 0 to VDD every time. Why? We are only concerned about, जैसे कि मान लो ये clock है, ठीक है? Suppose this is the clock. Awesome. This is a pulse stream. Then, if this is your VDD voltage axis, this can be your VDD, right? Why is it necessary to pull the clock all the way to VDD? We will put it as, let us say, only 0.2 of VDD. Okay, so whenever you are trying to design the clock circuits, this is 0. Okay, then we can of course ensure that the maximum voltage that the clocks will reach is only like 20% of the VDD. That means the entire clocking circuit, the clocking network, will essentially be driven by the switching power, which is much less. That is, you can see, which is 0.2 of VDD. 0.2 uska square. How much is it? Okay, so that means you are essentially reducing the switching power like anything by ensuring that those portions of the circuit which are not essentially related to the exact logic levels, you can use much lower VDD in the same technology node. Because in case of clocking, we are only concerned about the instances or the edges of the clock. It's not the level triggered. Mostly we will be using, even if it is level triggered, doesn't matter, we will be doing it at 0.2 VDD itself. Okay, so for the clocks we will essentially be looking at the instances, the edges, clock edges only. Okay, so this is a typical example. These are of course, I mean, for example, clock gating is just one example. There are several ways of reducing switching activity, as you will see. There are several techniques of reducing VDD. One, I have discussed scaling theory, but scaling theory is, I mean, nothing to do with the circuit designers. Circuit designers can go for multi-VDD circuits. Number 4, of course, चार ही तो है, alpha, CO, VDD and F. The only one that is remaining is the CO. उसका क्या कर सकते हैं?
With how the technology reduces, then capacitance will be reduced.
Yes, scale. Actually, to be honest, you know
So
what? If you are
reduce fan
changing the
out.
technology node, just to say. So whenever you are reducing the dimensions and all that, all of these will be benefited. To be honest, okay. Even the frequency will actually improve. Okay, so that means at I mean, you can go for higher frequencies also because the delays will be reduced. Yes, Ashok, you were telling something.
Sir, reducing fan out will decrease
So
the
how
total
do you-
net output capacitance.
So how does it? How does fan out actually deal? Okay, here is something important for you to note. Suppose we have made one inverter. Okay. Now, if it is a single inverter stage, okay, basically you are making an inverter only. Okay, you are essentially working in TI, who is making a chip for an inverter. That chip will be used in digital design laboratory in BITS Pilani or any engineering college, where they will essentially use it for the digital design lab. Then in that case, you do not have any control over the output capacitance which you are using. That means the switching power, I mean the CO is not in your control. What is the CO? Remember, CO will be equal to CL plus C internal plus the C parasitics, right? So you can of course do something about the C internal and C parasitics with the layout and all that, but CL is not in your control. Okay, so that means CL is not in your control. However, in most of the modern digital designs, what happens is, except those very, very rare cases where you are simply designing one simple inverter, that's really foolish. In modern technology, you will be having thousands of inverters running in series. Okay. There will be cascade of this going on throughout the entire network. Okay. Then this is the capacitance seen at the input. This is the capacitance seen at the output. Okay. Now the question of fan out comes. How many of these inverters will be supported by the output? So that means if I'm essentially taking 2, 3, 4 same inverters, this is basically called FO4, typical industrial jargon. That is called, whenever you are trying to design an IC, okay, even for the inverter IC also, then you have to mention in the manual of that IC what is the net effective FO4 delay. That means fan out of 4. So if you are basically giving this the same IC 4 instances at the output, then what is the delay which you are going to see? So basically in this case, what you will get here, the CO, the net output capacitance, will be roughly equal to the 4 times of C in, right? And what is the, how do you define the fan out? C out by C in. That is basically 4. Got it? We will look into the fan out much more details later on. So this is how you define the fan out. So if you are, so how do you define fan out? Fan out is the number of the same chips that can be driven at the output of that chip. So if this is your inverter output, okay, this is the inverter output node. So you are simply placing 4 of this. So basically, if this is your C in, this is also going to be your C in, C in, C in, C in. So CO, output capacitance, will be roughly equal to the 4 number of C in, or fan out number of C in. So C out by C in will be 4. That's how you define the fan out. Got it? So under this condition, what are the delays you are going to observe here? Observe, measure, calculate, simulate, whatever. So that delay is called the FO4 delay. So this FO4 delay is a very, very standard in industry. In our journals, papers, technical reports, wherever, we have to always mention that. What is the FO4 delay? Okay. Anyways, so if you are putting a cascade, okay, then how can you reduce the total time taken for this? That essentially comes into the architecture. So now, as we can gradually see, the point where these are all abstractions. For example, in the advanced VLSI design course, the entire device aspect is an abstraction. And that abstraction is the library which you will be using. So the moment I give you, okay, take this, this is 45 nanometer technology library, then this is an abstraction. The entire PMMD course will become an abstraction. Okay, similarly, the embedded systems students, they will realize that once I have given this cascade of inverters, okay, then the circuit level will become an abstraction for them. For them, it becomes more a problem of architectures, how to arrange these inverters, a series of inverters, such that you will be having the minimum delays. So that is where we come to the concept of pipelines. Sorry. There is a power cut here. Yeah. So that brings us to the concept of pipeline architecture. That you must have studied in your VLSI architecture or advanced VLSI architecture something. Okay. So how to reduce the CO? As one of you rightly said, you have to deal with the fan out. But the fan out actually makes sense only when you are thinking about an architecture level. Several in series, okay, in cascade. So okay, all right. So now, so that was for the switching power consumption. Okay, this short circuit dynamic power will essentially take another 1 hour. So what I will do is I'll stop here today. Okay, tomorrow there will be no class. Okay, I have to go to the hospital. All right, so when is the next class? That will be on Saturday. Okay, no problem. Because switching the short circuit power is going to be slightly more complicated. Although I prepared it, but we will see. By the way, you must, I mean, I'll be discussing with you later also. The power calculations, whatever we are doing here, that's all right. But whenever we are speaking about the transitions, that means the dynamic power is primarily represented better off using energy perspectives. We will understand that in many of your papers, I have started going through the papers which you have uploaded, which you have shared for the projects. So by the way, if any one of you are yet to still upload some papers, please ensure that you have given it, because by this weekend, I'm going to finish off all the corrections of the papers, and then I will give the comments and all. So you can give 2 or 3 different papers so that I can give comments on them. This is regarding your starting point of your project. Okay, so yes, in many of the papers which you will see, that people will be speaking about the average power, reduction in the average power, minimizing the average power. Then some other papers, they will be speaking about, let us say, minimum static power. Okay, some will say minimizing dynamic power. But remember, this dynamic, static, and all this, these do not actually represent the actual scenario. What you should rather look into is from the energy perspective. Energy perspective means it's not just a question of I into V, that is the power consideration. What you should be concerned about is the energy dissipation. Okay, not just the power dissipation, energy dissipation. So energy consumption. So this energy consumption is basically how much? All the total power multiplied by the time period. Okay, so how do you represent this? Instead of measuring power, you put it as power delay product. Okay, so this power delay product is a much more important parameter in modern technology rather than the average power, static power, or dynamic power. But I have noticed many of the conference papers, they will simply minimize the dynamic power and they'll publish a paper. But if you want to do a very good paper, very good journal, for example, quite honestly, I'm not interested in conferences. This time also, our Hari Prasad is going to, is going to present one paper in VLSI Design Conference. Every year we go, but I'm not interested. Journals are much more intricate and much more rigorous. So in the journals, you will notice people will be reporting PDP, power delay product, rather than this average power, static power, or dynamic power. Why? We will see it in the next class. Energy perspectives. So that will represent the total energy drawn from the power supply per transition. Okay, so why it is better and all that, we will essentially look into it later. Okay, so henceforth, whenever you are working in your project or anywhere, whenever you are speaking, you compare your circuits with respect to the power delay product rather than just the power. It is something similar to the case whenever we are speaking about analog circuits. We don't say that, okay, my circuit is better because the gain is more than your circuit. It makes no sense. This is very foolish because everyone knows that the performance will be something like this. So if I want to have, this is your gain, this is your frequency. Okay, so if I want to have a higher frequency, I will just minimize the gain and I'll claim, okay, your gain is higher, but my frequency of operation is higher. This is so foolish. What it means is I will go for the gain bandwidth product. Okay, so what does it mean? It is basically the area under the curve. Okay, so the area under the curve is the gain bandwidth product, or we will, in analog, we will call it GBW. So the gain bandwidth product is what gives you the performance metrics of the analog circuit design. Okay. Similarly, we will look into this in the next class. These red spikes are the currents, right? So the area under this current over here, okay, that gives you the area under the curve, and that area under the curve is power into delay product. Okay, we will see how it is represented. Okay, that is essentially the power delay product. Again, that is the area under the curve. So you should maximize GBW, not the gain. अगर gain को बढ़ाना है, frequency को कम कर दो यार. What is the big deal? So how good your analog circuit is represented by the GBW. That is the gain bandwidth product, or in other words, area under the curve. In terms of the geometry or the Bode plot, it simply represents the area under the Bode plot. Okay. Similarly, in case of digital circuit designs, it is the power delay product. So we are essentially going to plot like this. This is the total power consumption, and this is the time, and we will see for the entire time period. Okay, we will see that it will be like this. The total area under the curve is what matters. So what is the area under the curve? Power multiplied by the time. Power into time is how much? Is what? Energy. Okay, so that is what I mean by saying it is the energy perspectives. So the actual performance matrix of the circuit is essentially represented by the energy perspective rather than the just representing power perspective. Okay, thank you. That's all for today. So there will be no class tomorrow. We will meet again on Saturday. Okay, thanks a lot.